Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. I hope you're all doing well this morning because we've got lots to get into. A week today the transfer window will close and activity is starting to occur around Manchester United, specifically in relation to potential people leaving United, but there is an update on Amadou HAIDARA which we're going to bring you as well to start off with. As well as that, Anthony Martial, Juventus and Sevilla looking at him, and the Jesse Lingard to Newcastle deal moving closer according to Fabrizio Romano, who we've got live on the show at 2 o'clock, so we should get an update on what to expect in this next week at Manchester United. Also very interesting and I would say concerning updates coming out of the new board member Richard Arnold and his plan to integrate former players to make everything nice and cosy. Living in the past, the NAFC, but maybe you agree with it, so we'll talk about that as well. But first of all, as you can see, we're sponsored by the One Football app for this show. The football season is in full swing and now the transfer window as well. It's going to be very busy, not just for ourselves but our rivals as well, and One Football is here to make sure you have everything you need to keep you up to date with the latest football action. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about One Football previously, so you know it's the best place around for an app to get all your information, your scores updates for the AFCON and everything else, the South American internationals, football transfer news and up-to-date content surrounding your favourite club and leagues, not just Manchester United but the other leagues as well. I use it almost every day. It's on my phone and you can get the latest football news too. So what you're waiting for, click the link in the description. It's completely free to download. It's on Apple and Android. It's a fantastic little app. All your latest football news, scores, stats, everything like that. Links in the video description. Big shout out to One Football as ever, and you can download that. And I said, it's a good time. It's a good time to download it because there's a lot of transfer news to consume. So links in the video description for One Football. Thank you very much to them. Make sure you download it for free and help the channel out. So let's go. Let's get into this show. I'm actually going to start off with HAIDARA. I was going to talk. There's a few big things I want to talk about. I really want to talk about. This is coming from The Athletic that basically Manchester United new board CEO Richard Arnold wants to has already had conversations apparently with Gary Neville and wants to have more conversations with him and ex-players in the media to discuss how Manchester United can do better. So I want to talk about that because it's coming from a good source. It's coming from Daniel Taylor in The Athletic, and David Ornstein's referenced it as well as Laurie Whitwell. So it's coming from a good source. This is United's plan then. Let's go and speak to the ex-players in the media. I wonder why. It's because they're in the media. It's because they want them on side. It's nothing to do with these people have got no CV. I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's just about influence, power and influence. And I, for one, hope that these ex-players don't fall for it. But egos are egos, and when you massage egos, sometimes people fall for it. But I don't actually want those ex-players in the club having a voice either. But we'll talk about that in a bit. I think United need to move on. I don't see Liverpool, Chelsea and Man City doing this. Some people would disagree with me, but I don't. I don't see them doing this, and I don't know why United, after 10 years of failure, are still focusing on DNA. Like, you know what? These legends are great. They've won trophies for us, but this is the modern game of football, and I see them and listen to them every week, and I don't think most of them really are tapped into the modern game of football. I think they've got good opinions, but I don't think they can rebuild a football club, and that's what we need. Anyway, let's start off with some transfer news. We will come back to that in a minute because I think it's a hot topic. But Ronan Murphy, who is a journalist very good around German news, he's come out this morning via MUFC MPB saying that nothing will happen regarding Amadou HAIDARA to Manchester United until at least Wednesday. Mali are still in the AFCON, so they won't want to disrupt their preparations for the game that they've got, and United are going to have to make a decision by the weekend. I think it's the quarterfinals of the AFCON this weekend, so the reality is that in relation to HAIDARA, and I don't know how advanced or likely this deal is, they could well win that game on Wednesday, and then they're in an important quarter-final of the AFCON, and then if they win that, they're going beyond the transfer deadline. So United have got a decision to make here, whether it's Kamara, HAIDARA, Zakaria. I don't know at this point, but I do think they need to bring a midfielder. I think top four depends on it. And, look, what I would say is, and I've always been consistent with this, I know Adam was on the show last night saying that he doesn't look like we're going to get any business done now because we haven't done any business so far. But in the January, look, I'm a student of transfers. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been, since the days of CFAX and Teletext and Page 312, which no one will have a bloody clue what that's about. That was in the late 80s and early 90s. I love transfer business. I've like a lot of you, I just do. It's something about transfers I quite like, and The January transfer window is always about the last week and the last few days. I'm completely relaxed about the fact that we've not done any business yet, because I don't see Arsenal or Spurs doing any real business yet. I mean, Bruno went right to the end of the window. If we're going to do business, it will happen in the next 8 days. I do think things are going to happen. I'm not sat here with this international break or whatever it is going, oh, boring till United play. I don't think it's going to be that long till United play anyway, because we're playing on a Friday night, so it's only a week on Friday, and plus we've got all this transfer news that's going to happen. I can't guarantee we're going to buy anybody. I've got no real information that we're going to get anybody at the moment, but what I've always felt and what I've always discussed with people and my logic is, two out, one in, and that's basically what I think will happen. And that sounds like some sort of dodgy porn, doesn't it? 2 out, 1 in. But the reality is, I think that's what United will do. If it runs to plan, they've got to remove players. This was the case under Solskjaer. They have got to remove players, and that was Richard Arnold. He wants to talk to me now. Well, you're not getting me on side. I'll have a chat, but I'm not going to start bloody singing "The Glazers Are It." Just want to say, Glazers out as well. You got knocked out, didn't you? You're not winning the Super Bowl this year. Oh dear. Maybe you focus on your football club a little bit more now. But so I think that 2 out, 1 in is logical, and therefore we're going to have to move players out first. The interesting thing with HAIDARA is that, yes, he is part of the AFCON at the moment, and 30 million will get him. The interesting thing with Zakaria is he's out of contract in the summer like Kamara is, and there's certainly an offer there. I mean, the reality is that we could see players that we like move this week, but not to Manchester United. Might be controversial, says Joshua Bellwater, but would you ever consider a 6-month loan for Greenwood to a mid-table Premier League club? Yes, I've said this before, Joshua. You know, we're speaking from the same mindset here. I would loan I would loan Mason Greenwood out to. Where I'd like to see Mason Greenwood go? Everton on loan for the rest of the season. Let him play up front for Everton. He'll score some goals. He'll play in the Premier League and he'll play up front. And that's where I'd like to see Mason Greenwood go. Some people would say Calvert-Lewin would get picked ahead of him, but I don't know. But Manchester United, I just think it's problematic for him and it's problematic for the club. I mean, it's probably a video in itself. Maybe we'll discuss it tonight or something like that. But I do think that, I've said it before and people said, oh, you can't loan Mason out. But I think, really, is his development coming along in the way that it needs to? And that's the question. Hi Mark, why are Man United fans impatient with Ranić? I think Manchester United fans are just impatient in general, pal. And we cannot sell Martial, who was our best player against Brentford, says Ivan, and that was from Aola, who's on about why are we impatient with Ranić. Well, I'll come back to that in a minute. I just want to whiz through some of the early part of the show with some transfer news. So with HAIDARA, it's coming out of Germany that if anything's going to happen, it won't happen until the end of the week, which is what I think will happen with any midfielder. I think people have got to leave before we bring people in, and I'll be asking Romano that at lunchtime at 2 o'clock. So, he might say United are definitely not buying anybody, or he might say, look, people have got to go out the door before people come in, which is what I think. But look, let's have a look at what Romano has said this morning. Basically, he said in relation to Jesse Lingard that, and I will read it out to you verbatim, relation to Jesse Lingard, Newcastle are plying ahead to try and get this deal done. And that, where does he say it? Where's the tweet? Has he took it down? Newcastle, again, are going to push on Jesse Lingard in the next few hours. Magpies board working hard to sign Jesse at least until the end of the season. Then he'll become a free agent. So Newcastle, look, in relation to Newcastle, Jesse Lingard, they are pushing hard to get that deal done. Ideally, I think what we want to see is probably Jesse Lingard leaving Manchester United for 15, 20 million. Maybe even 12 million. That's what we want to see, because it's our last opportunity to get some money. But taking away money, obviously in a well-run club, you'd look at that situation and say it'd be great to get some money for Jesse. But Ander Herrera's walked out of this club for nothing, and we should have got 25 million. Paul Pogba's going to walk out of this club for nothing, and we should get 50 million. So we can't go mad if United mess up another player walking out the door. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of money we waste at that football club on wages and people walking out the door. And going back to what we were talking about before, having a chat with Gary Neville and co, so that they're nice to you in the media. I mean, I defy any ex-player to actually sit down and not call them out. I mean, all that they only want to sit down with you because they want you to stop talking. I mean, it actually says it in the article that they want to build better relationships with these influential voices who have been negative about the ownership and the previous CEO. Sorry, everyone deserves a second chance, but we're just about to lose Paul Pogba for nothing, and Herrera went for nothing. You're paying stupid wages for players that don't deserve it, and you just don't want people to call you out for it. Maybe stop making stupid decisions, and maybe, you know what, in life, instead of trying to influence people, a lot of rich people influence people with backhanders. It's the way of the world. You know, you might live in certain countries where you don't realise that. You might live in certain countries and parts of the world where you do. But this having conversations with people to influence them so that they don't say bad things about you, this is political. This is what goes on in government. You're being called out because you're crap at your job. Stop being crap at your job and you won't get called out. I absolutely detest the influence that rich people have on people who can be manipulated so that they can pretend that they're good at what they do, rather than putting the hard yards in to actually be good at what you do. What would make you think that Richard Arnold was good at his job, or the Glazers were good at their job? How about buying a midfielder? How about getting rid of some of the crap? How about the rhythm and history of what this club is all about? You know, where we have good players who try hard instead of tryhards who aren't good enough. This is where you won't get criticised. But they don't want to put the hard work in. They just want to influence people so they don't say bad things about them, even though they're bad. It's manipulation. But look, in relation to Lingard, I think ultimately, hopefully, Newcastle will get this deal over the line. I personally wouldn't cry if it was a loan deal. I mean, look, Lingard was on the bench on the weekends. I forgot he was on the bench. The only time I knew Lingard was on the bench was when we were talking about the team news. He shouldn't have been brought on. He wasn't brought on, but he should be playing Premier League football. And at Newcastle, who look like they're going to, steer their way out of trouble now, that's a good tick on his box. You know, last year at West Ham, he helped them get into a top 4 race and into Europe. That was a good tick on his CV. This would be a good tick on his CV to go and help a club out and keep them up. Personally, I wouldn't be opposed if I was Lingard to signing a proper contract, to sign for them. I think it's an exciting project, but certainly at the very least he should be going on there on loan, and I would hope that will happen. I'd love to get some money for him, but ultimately that's not our problem as fans. It's not Lingard's problem as a player. This is on the board. The fact that we want Lingard to go to Newcastle and sign for them so we can get a little bit of money, I understand that, but ultimately the club should have sold him in the summer. And you can't put everything on Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold, Murta. They're all still at this club, and he should have gone in the summer. So hopefully that will happen with Lingard. So that would be one out. There's still possibility about. I mean, look, we're talking about outs here because that's an update from Romano this morning. There's also one from the Athletic about Martial and Juventus. There are other options for people to leave the club. I mean, look. We've been very, very supportive of Donny van der Beek on this channel. Patrick Mahomes is bringing home the trophy. I think you're right, Iffy. I think he will. I felt bad for the Bills last night, but I think they will. NFL's been fantastic this weekend, by the way, if anyone watches it. But anyway, we'll stick it to football. I think that Donny van der Beek's had a lot of support in the fan base. And I don't know where everybody is on this now, but I can't be asked with free Donny anymore. I can't be asked with give Donny a chance. I think that the writing's been on the wall for a very long time, and I can't understand. And I'm not frustrated with Donny. I think he's lost 2 years of his career. I think he's been treated terribly. Whether he's good enough or not, you never really understand whether a player's good enough unless you give them game time. And my problem with Van der Beek has always been that, look, you can say he must be crap in training, you can say he mustn't be good enough, but every time we've seen him, he's looked like he's got something about him. And that is then balanced by the fact that we've seen Fred, McTominay, Matic underperform consistently. So why would you not just give Donny van der Beek a chance? It's the weirdest thing ever, but it is what it is. And I think that I look at Donny now and he just seems to be waiting. I feel like somebody needs to just grab hold of him and tell him, put a transfer request in and go public, because you're waiting for something that's not going to happen. Even at the weekend, Fred was not playing particularly well. You didn't get to come on. Brentford, Fred was not playing very well. You didn't get to come on. McTominay's not played well. You didn't get to come on. You're not being used. Bruno didn't play well at the weekend. You didn't come on. You're not being used, mate. 2 years of your career, completely gone. It's January. The World Cup's in December. Waiting to move until the summer. I don't think you go to the World Cup. You need to play football this year. You need to play football February, March, April, May to have any chance of going to the World Cup. Is that going to happen in a United shirt with Pogba coming back? No, it's not. Donny van de Beek, and I will be asking Romano about this, should be, and I don't like to say it, but Donny van de Beek should be forcing a move out of Manchester United. And I don't understand why he's not. And look, he must have the patience of a saint, and you've got to say his loyalty and is amazing, but I think it's damaging his career. I really do. And they don't rate him, so let him go. If you were going to convince them, you would have convinced them by now. At the end of the day, if I'm a midfielder and I think I'm one of the better midfielders in Europe, but I'm not playing ahead of Matic, McTominay and Fred, that's a big wake-up call in the morning. When I look in the mirror in the morning and I'm really moody, I can imagine it. I'm Donny van de Beek, I'm waking up, but I've got my personality and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm going, fucking hell. Fred and McTominay and Matic are playing ahead of me. Get the fucking phone. Ranić on WhatsApp. Get me on the transfer request, or I'm speaking to the Athletic. You know, maybe not the Athletic. They're a bit pro-United, but there you go. Anyway, so my point is there could be other players that leave this week. I don't think it will happen, but Donny should be forcing a move. Henderson wants to go, but doesn't seem to be able to get a move. Mata, what's the point? Like you may as well have retired, apart from the wages. So there are players that could leave. Eric Bailly's another one we mentioned. You know, maybe that could happen, but maybe being part of the AFCON will mean it'll happen in the summer. But I think Anthony Martial and Lingard are probably the two that are the front runners at the moment. And the Athletic are saying this morning that the Juventus are interested, Sevilla are interested, but obviously Manchester United want the wages. Now it's interesting. I've sort of flip-flopped on Martial because at the start of the transfer window, I was like, if no one's going to pay his wages, we don't let him go. Then I was like, but we're not using him, so it's better to pay his wages and let him go somewhere so he's playing, so his value goes up. Then he comes on at the weekend and you see, well, he's very good, and you're like, do you want to pay his wages for him to go elsewhere? It's a difficult one with Martial, because if we're going to play him, you keep him, but I don't think there is a plan to keep him. Ranić's comments this morning about Rashford, look, it's about consistency, and, you know, he clearly, look, the reality is, whether you agree with it or not, he clearly rates Greenwood and Rashford ahead of Martial. I'm not getting into that conversation because you will, but the reality is I think it's very clear that he rates Rashford and Greenwood over Martial. If that's the case, it's very much the same as Donny van de Beek, isn't it? He rates McTominay and Fred and Matic above Donny van de Beek. You can disagree with it, but you're not the manager. So I think for Martial he needs to go, but it's whether somebody's going to pay the money for him or not. So, but we need to get a couple of players out this week, and then you can have maybe a player coming in. But you never know with United, we might do absolutely nothing. Mark, if our club are asking the likes of Neville and attempting to buy favours, Lingard and Martial could end up at Salford City. Seriously, United are scary, says Andy and Bruno. So yeah, we've given you the update on HAIDARA, Lingard from Romano, Martial from The Athletic. So that's basically where we're at in relation to transfers at the moment. I do think that we are going to see some activity this week, and we might see things that are really quite surprising. So let's wait and see. Now then, let's get into this. I think this is going to create some debate. So this is from The Athletic this morning. So Richard Arnold has already contacted Gary Neville, the fiercest critic of Woodward and the Glazers, and it is understood that Arnold intends to do the same with some other former Man United players who are now working as television pundits. The line of communication will remain open, and Arnold will be hoping he can avoid the kind of scrutiny that eventually led to Neville and others questioning whether Man United would be better without Woodward calling the shots. And this is Arnold has already started canvassing opinion from ex-players who have been most vocal during Man United's year of drift. He's aware of the importance of building better relationships with these influential voices ahead of the official handover. I mean, look, straight away, I've got no issue with Richard Arnold doing that from a business point of view. You look at Sky, you look at BT, you look at the media, and you go, right, those players are being listened to and they are speaking negatively about me and the owners, and I need them on side. The problem is football is becoming very political. It is. Not just because players are doing political things off the pitch, not because ex-players are doing political things on Twitter. You know, more and more players and more ex-players are drifting into politics. Absolutely no issue with that. I don't really choose to do it. I don't want to get into it because I know politics is sometimes worse than football. You might vote Tory and hate Labour. You might vote Labour. You might hate Tory. You might be American and Democrat, Republic, whatever. Your personal politics are your personal politics. But I do think football has become politicised, or whatever the word is. And some people would say it always has been. But for me, I think, you know, it has been in the past. If you think back to the 80s, and football was very working class, and a lot of working class people would vote Labour. So, I get that. But I think actually the way football clubs behave and the media behave it always echoes the way governments behave, hiding things, manipulating things, spinning things. And I think that's what I mean by football has become politicised. So realistically, I think that if Manchester United are approaching ex-players who are big influencers in the media, they're doing it for one reason, because they don't want Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, whoever else they're going to approach to speak negatively about the club. But the reality is, why are they speaking to those people in the first place about Manchester United? Because when I think of those ex-players, and I'm not going to call them out, I wrote a list before the start of the show. I thought of, these are the things, this is what I think about our ex-players, and a lot of it's to do with the last 6 months. I think in relation to the Glazers, very good. The Super League, very good. Glazers out, very good. And I think they've been very, the positive, I'll start with the positive. I think that they have always been very, especially Gary Neville, very vocal about the Glazers not being the right people. I remember Gary Neville saying when Mourinho was going to get sacked, from top to bottom, that club is rotten. And it's the best thing he's ever said. I don't know whether he still agrees with that, and he was angry. He was angry, Gary. And he was right. So I agree with him on that. But when I think of our ex-players, and I'd even include, when we have Paul on, sometimes he's a bit like it. I think, Roy Keane's like it. And certainly, the Rios, the Scholesies, the Garys. I just automatically think this: we'd have Henderson in goal. We'd have an English and youth bias. We'd have no acknowledgement that we play with a back six and that there's a problem in the midfield. And yeah, that's and stick by your manager. I mean, look, Gary didn't want us to sack Moyes. He didn't want us to sack Ollie. The ex-players didn't come out as they never said anything bad about Ollie for a very, very long time. It was the fans who realised that things were going wrong under Ollie. So I think that, but with Mourinho, they were all over him. Again, there's this English bias. So I don't have strong trust in our football club and this DNA, FC, jobs for the boys, living in the past, let's just grab any ex-player because they've won a title and we can use them as the pin-up boy for the Glazers. I just think the club is lost, absolutely lost. And I've said it for a very long time, and I think the playing staff's lost. I think the board is lost, and I think the owners are lost in relation to what we are. They're lost. I don't think they know what we're meant to be. Obviously, the Glazers want to make money, but I think they're lost. And I think the reason they make decisions like let's speak to an ex-player who's got no CV and no idea how to win in the modern game, apart from sit on TV and talk about what they used to do and what they would do. And that's not disrespectful. I've got no CV. Most of you've got no CV. But their opinions really aren't much different to you. And sometimes I think they're worse. Sometimes I think they sit on the fence longer than any of you do. Do Man City do that? Do Man City get on the phone to Sean Gota? Do Chelsea get on the phone to John Terry? Do Liverpool get on the phone to Jamie Carragher? No, they don't. They let them speak in the media and go and do whatever they're doing because they've got their own plan on how to be a successful football club. And if I was Manchester United, I'd remove my head from my arse because they're very arrogant. The board at United under Woodward was very, very arrogant. They still, because we're such a big club, they still live off that big club. We're big, we're massive. Look at our revenue, look at our fan base, look at our ground, look at our trophy cabinet. We're better than you, we're bigger than you. There is still very much that attitude at Manchester United. I think there's still very much that attitude in the fan base, to be fair. But if I was in charge of Manchester United, if I was Richard Arnold, I would not be picking up the phone to Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand or Roy Keane or Paul Scholes or any of those people. I would be looking at what Man City have done. I would be looking at what Newcastle are going to do. I would be looking at what Chelsea have done, and I would be looking at what Liverpool have done. Especially Liverpool, Chelsea and Man City, because over the last decade, their success or their rebuilds to be successful in the modern day has been very, very good. What is it going to do for me to speak to somebody who's on Sky Sports in a nice suit, who's got Premier League titles at Manchester United over a decade ago? If you want to speak to ex-players, speak to Van der Sar, speak to Van Persie. I know they're both Dutch, but there will be other examples. Speak to Cristiano Ronaldo. Speak to somebody who's been successful in the modern game, who's experienced different leagues, different clubs, different rebuilds. I mean, Ronaldo's probably the best, but I'd speak to Ronaldo every single day of. I mean, what's the difference between speaking to Cristiano Ronaldo and Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand? Rio and Gary haven't won a title in 10 years. They've not played in 10 years. Ronaldo played with them and actually probably picked up more than they would know because he was a young player playing with them. He's then gone to Real Madrid, he's won Champions Leagues, he's been to Italy, he's now back at Manchester United. But I wouldn't be speaking to players anyway. I wouldn't be speaking to ex-players. I want to speak to directors of football. I want to speak to successful managers. I want to speak to successful scouts who we don't know the name of. I've got no issue with our ex-players. My issue is with that board. And I just think already you can see Richard Arnold is just what everybody suspects he's probably going to be. A different version of Ed Woodward because he's been working with him for a decade. And it worries me because we just seem to think everything we seem to do is spin. It's like, oh, let's speak to Gary Neville. Let's speak to another ex-player because they'll speak positively about the change and then we'll get more positivity in the media. Look, I couldn't... Just run the club properly. Run the club properly. Start playing good football. Build an exciting team. Start going deep into competitions. That's how you will win the fan base round. Everybody wants Manchester United to be successful who's a United fan. Everybody wants you to be successful as a CEO. But to do it, you've got to prove it. You can't get ex-players putting nice tweets out and think that's going to make everything okay. That's just manipulation. And it even says it in the article. They want them on side because they've been very critical in the past. But they've been right to be critical in the past. Because the Glazers aren't good for this football club. And Ed Woodward wasn't good for this football club. And if you're not good for this football club, you should be called out as well. Having chats with people about it. And ultimately, what's the chat about? Is it just about trying to make, let's be mates and not slag each other off? In which case, that's appalling. Or is it even worse, which is... what can I do to be better at my job? Why would an ex-player know how to run Manchester United just because they won titles here? Speak to specialists. Utilise Rangnick. What I can't understand, Mark, is surely there's a deal to be done with West Ham for Lingard and cash for Rice as Ivan Whelan. Well, no, there isn't actually, even. There isn't a deal to be done with West Ham. The deal to be done with West Ham, and West Ham probably wouldn't have wanted to do it anyway, would have been last summer. The reason there's no deal to do with West Ham and Lingard and Rice is because Lingard's worth nothing in the summer. He's free. So we can't do anything with West Ham. We can say we want Declan Rice, but we can't say we'll give you Lingard as part of the deal because Lingard will be like, swivel on it, I'm free. So that went last summer. And we can't do it now because there's no way West Ham would let Rice go now anyway. Why not speak with the coach himself, says Ola. We can't do anything about that at the moment, unfortunately. As much as I think a lot of you would like Declan Rice to come to the club, that's not going to happen in the summer. Hey Mark, is it true another deal on Donny was blocked? Says Sleeker. I've not heard anything about that. I mean, I am going to ask Fabrizio at 2:00 about Donny because I just don't understand why he hasn't decided to push for a move. I mean, there is a link this morning to Alexander Isak as a striking option for Manchester United, but I don't think that's worth even discussing at the moment because it's still a long way off with Manchester United and the summer transfer window, and I think we need to be focusing on this one. And look, just to focus back on the board for a minute, let's sharpen our view up here. Forget the ex-players, forget this living in the past DNA mates rates FC. All I want to see is Manchester United winning trophies again. I sit here now quite confident that we won't win a trophy this season, and that isn't acceptable. It is. I don't think we'll win a trophy this year. I really can't see how. Well, we're not winning the league. We can't win the Carabao Cup. We won't win the Champions League. So the FA Cup's the only chance we've got. And, unless we get lucky, we're not going to win the FA Cup because at some point you expect to play Chelsea, Liverpool or Man City, at least two of them to win the tournament, unless we get lucky along the way and we only have to play one or they get knocked out. So another trophyless season with one of the most expensive squads in the world, one of the biggest wage bills in the world, another failure basically. And why do I think that will happen? Because I just think we are rudderless. Absolutely rudderless. And, there's always a shift of blame at Manchester United. It's the Glazers, it's the manager, it's Ed Woodward, it's the director of football, and ultimately that blame culture does exist within United. There's never a collective responsibility, and really there should be. Everybody should be in sync and everybody should be accountable, because everybody does have a voice in that boardroom, whether it's Murta, whether it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, whether it's Ralph Rangnick, whether it's Ed Woodward, whether it's Richard Arnold. They all have meetings together, and therefore they're all part of the process. Whether it's, if you're successful, you share that success, and if you're failure, you share that failure. We have a massive week this week where we should be buying a midfielder, and the only reason we're not going to buy a midfielder is because of that board. Now, your conversations with ex-players to spin positives and massage egos or whatever it is you're trying to do, let's not lose sight of the fact of what's most important. What's most important is, for some reason, a top 4 race that really should have been on lockdown and was meant to be a title race, but let's forget that. Top 4 that should have been on lockdown is not on lockdown, and it is very much a race that we probably are going to be in unless we go on a ridiculous run. This is going to go until at least April, and we know March is very difficult. And here we are in January, knowing how weak our midfield is, knowing how many midfield battles we've lost this season, knowing that even under Rangnick we've lost midfield battles. When you think about what Wolves, the first half against Brentford, the second half against Villa, West Ham, I wouldn't say either team won the midfield battle, so it was quite a good defensive midfield performance from United, but we didn't really create anything from there. We are weak in the midfield, and we've seen Norwich and Newcastle, again under Rangnick, deal with us. So we're weak in the midfield, and it's evidential. And United have gone, let's wait till the summer. I don't care who they talk to. I don't care what ex-player they talk to. The reality is you will be judged on what you do in relation to that football team, and it will be a disgrace if we don't buy a midfielder when there are so many available this transfer market to give us a better chance of getting into the top 4. They are playing Russian roulette with our season to save a few quid and wait till the summer, because they think they know best. And basically, what United think is this: let's not spend any money now because we'll get a new manager in the summer, and it's better if they spend the money. Well, that's absolutely fine if you're clear in the top 4 positions by 10 points. I get that. But what about the situation where top 4's not sorted out, our midfield keeps losing battles, and there's a risk that between now and the summer they'll keep continuing to lose battles and we'll lose the top 4 battle? This is what annoys me about the board. It's this pragmatic, head in the sand, banking background approach to football that hasn't worked in a decade. They keep making the same mistakes. They focus on DNA FC. They focus on bringing players in from the past. They focus on jobs for the boys. They focus on a banking approach to transfers, and it doesn't work. The same people, we've not rejigged our board in 10 years. Ed Woodward is the first real person on the board to leave in 10 years of failure. And yet they still keep doing the same things. How do we spin this? How do we manipulate that? How do we promote our great social media work? I mean, look at the goal that Man United scored on Saturday. Absolutely amazing goal. I've never seen. In many ways, it was amazing and I loved it, especially Cavani's reaction. But I've never seen the reaction to a goal go viral as much. And that's what we're great at. And I just want us to be great at doing that every week. And look, when we score those goals, when Ronaldo does it against Villarreal, and it's at Old Trafford in front of the Stretford end, they've got people with cameras, they've got people with phones. I'm filming it. Time for another vibes goal reaction, and it's amazing what they do. They get it out everywhere, and it goes massively viral. And if you're in Italy or you're in Mexico, you're like, oh my God, what a goal! Was that to win the league? No, it was to beat West Ham to go fourth. But United are brilliant at it. I'm not being sarcastic. United are brilliant at their social media. Number 1 on TikTok, absolutely great. I want us to be brilliant on the pitch. I want that goal that we scored against West Ham to be happening 3 or 4 times a month instead of 1 or 2 times a season. And they can then use that clip a lot more than they do. I mean, you know what? It must have been hard for United. They say nurses have got it hard. United's social media team over the last 6 weeks must be, what a bad Christmas for them. Because they've had nothing. They've not been able to put any of those little clips out or pictures of Ronaldo or anything. It's been horrible for them. And they know what to do when there's positivity, but the positivity needs to come from the actions of the board to make us a strong footballing side. And I think I go back to what I said before. This week is so important, and yet it feels like United are just the thing you keep hearing is that United want to wait till the summer. They want to wait till the summer, and there's an arrogance, and this is what I mean. There's an arrogance within that football club. It's arrogant to think they can wait. Ultimately, it's arrogant, isn't it? It's arrogant to think you don't need to buy anybody. You can get by with what you've got and still get top four. That's basically saying to Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham and Wolves, we might not be very good and we need some work, but we still think we're better than you. It's an arrogance. And one day, the trouble with arrogance is, one day, you're going to end up looking at Pratt. And we have ended up looking at Pratt a lot over the last 10 years. And it worries me. It really does. We have a coach who has built clubs, but these people are talking to Gary and the others, says Anka. Mate, they're just obsessed. They're obsessed with the past. They're obsessed with DNA. And some of our fans are obsessed with it as well. I love our past. We're coming up to February very, very soon, and the anniversary of Munich, and that's so important to this football club. It's the thing that binds us. It's the thing that everything's built on for most of us. And our past is very, very important. But I'll always go back to Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson came down from Aberdeen with no touch point on Manchester United and rebuilt that football club. And Pep Guardiola rebuilt Man City, or built it, whatever you want to call it. Klopp rebuilt Liverpool. Chelsea basically get managers in every couple of years to rebuild Chelsea, and they're successful. How many titles have Chelsea won? How many cups have Chelsea won since Sir Alex Ferguson retired? And how many have we won? And how many managers have Chelsea had? They go for the best, they back them, and they want success. And yes, it might be short term, but I can't understand people who moan about short termism. I don't want him. We need someone for the long term. Why do we need someone for the long term? Because Sir Alex Ferguson came in and went and became, unbelievably the best manager in the world. What's wrong with short-termism? What's wrong with a manager that comes in and brings success back? Like, we're almost becoming allergic to winning and obsessed with... United are a little bit like that person who has a childhood sweetheart, right? And they mess it up. Or it's the best thing ever. Like, it's the best relationship ever. And then they move to Australia and you don't see them anymore. And then for the rest of your life, you just keep going on about that person all the time. Even when you're in a new relationship. I used to go out with her. She went to Australia. It was great while it lasted. And then she went to Australia. And they ruin every other relationship focusing on the one from the past, which they're never going to get back. They're never going to get back. And that's what we're doing. We're just so focused on this relationship from the past. And it's almost like, that relationship from the past that was brilliant. And she's moved to Australia, or he. And however they look like, we go and find somebody who looks like them, even if their personality is completely different, or we try and make them look like them, or this is even better, right? So that relationship that you had and it's broken down and she's gone to Australia, when you find your new girlfriend, you start inviting the mates of the old girlfriend because she can teach the new girlfriend about that. And this is what I mean about talking to ex-players. It's like breaking up with somebody, going out with somebody new, but bringing the friends of the previous one to talk to that one so they can tell you how good that relationship was. Just reset, refresh. But United is so stuck in the past. I don't, look, I could go on all morning, but I don't get what an ex-player of Manchester United who's won a title 10 years ago is going to tell a CEO now to do to make us successful. What is he going to do? Like, I could take anyone. I could ask any of the fanzines, any match-going fan, any fan from around the world, anyone could be given 5 minutes with Richard Arnold and give as good or the same information that any ex-player will. Because the only information that matters is the Glazers need to stop treating this football club like a brand and start treating it like a football club. And Richard Arnold will go, oh, right, okay, that's great information. And it will never happen. So it's all conjecture, it's all spin, it's all nonsense, because the only thing that matters is, are the Glazers going to sell, or are they going to treat it like a football club? No and no. Fine, bye, end of conversation. I'll be speaking honestly in the press. Anyway, Thanks everyone for watching. We've got Fabrizio Romano at 2 o'clock, so we'll be able to get some information on what's going on in relation to transfers. If there's any ones in particular you'd like to know about, I'm going to put a tweet out in a minute where you can just reply in there and I'll take some notes. I've got quite a few already written down, but we'll be live at 2 o'clock with Fabrizio Romano. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. And of course, the OneFootball app is sponsoring the show, so download it for free. It's on Apple, it's on Android. All your latest Manchester United transfer news, but also all your AFCON news, all your news about other transfers. Fantastic little app. Make sure you download it and give it a go. And I will speak to you all very well. I hope you're all very well, and I'll speak to you all in about 3 and a bit hours when we're talking to Romano. Take care. Speak to you in a bit. I will be on Twitch later, Suresh, about 3 o'clock.